In the Diamond Sutra, the very important point is made that the Bodhisattva should teach beings, help beings move toward decreases in their suffering, enhanced liberation, illumination, enlightenment, but at the same time recognize that in reality, at a more fundamental level, there are no separate individuals. Now, I don't claim to be a bodhisattva per se, but that is a good way of thinking about this YouTube channel. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, on the one hand, I'm pleased that there are now over 600 people subscribing to this Akala channel, my channel, and as well that now I've hit the mark that I have uploaded just over 600 videos. And while I don't get feedback on a daily basis, I get 2 or 3 comments every week, and in general, they're quite positive and complimentary, and those comments help encourage me to do more. So that's my egoistic kind of take on things. And, I kind of need to remind myself that that's not the point. The point is not the numbers. The point is not the feedback. The point is to promulgate the Dharma, to be a source of input to folks without an expectation of, feedback, on the basis that I have a conviction that the Buddha Dharma is wonderful, that it's worth promulgating, and that in particular the Mahayana teachings are extremely profound and some of the most altruistic documents and teachings that have ever been created by human beings. Now, I realize probably that, of the 600 and some people subscribing to my channel, there may be a much smaller number. Probably, I don't know how many, 25, 30, maybe 50 folks who kind of follow the uploads that I provide on a regular basis, pretty much one a day, although I don't in any way, sort of keep myself to that kind of pattern. I just do what comes naturally in terms of the process that I'm undertaking as a result of my own impulse to promulgate this teaching. Now, for those that do follow me on a regular basis, there could be some confusion in terms of what is he doing in terms of his potpourri of whatever it is that I'm uploading on a particular day or in a particular week. So I thought it might be helpful to give a little bit of an overview as to where I am at right at this point in time as far as how I am viewing the work that I'm doing and what is unfolding as far as uploads on my channel. So that's a long preamble to simply indicate that what I wanted to do at a process level was to share what the things are that I'm reciting and uploading, and that way those that are watching or listening on a regular basis can have some sense of what to expect. First off, let me note, obviously, that one of the things that I'm doing is reciting and uploading essays by Dr. Alfred Bloom. I think I've mentioned in a previous video, or perhaps in a description of a video, that I had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to have face-to-face contact with Dr. Bloom, once in Virginia and once out in California. And I really respect him as somebody who was one of the first sort of converts to Qin Buddhism here in the West, who was able to describe the essence of the teaching of faith in Amida Buddha in his, not only in his essays, but in the books that he wrote, one of which is quite famous, I would say, talking about the pure grace of the Qin Buddhist path. But anyway, I have a lot of respect for him. I got permission to recite these essays, and I'm probably not going to do every single one of them that's available online at, I believe it's Shin Dharma Net. But, most of them I think have some good teaching, and there have been largely positive comments about these. So I'll continue to sprinkle these in as I do my various recitations. Now, There are a couple of things that I'm doing that you won't have an opportunity to see or hear for a fair amount of time, probably not until next spring. And what these are two things that, my colleague and friend Sean um, from Hong Kong is going to modify or edit so that he can publish them with English and Chinese subtitles, and then he in turn will send them to me and I'll upload them onto my channel. The difference being he's going to put background music on his, and I won't be putting any background music on mine. But the two things we're going to do here are actually re-recitations. One is the Sutra of Complete Enlightenment, which is a wonderful, wonderful sutra, as is the other one, the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. And particularly in the case of the Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, I was not happy with the audio in the version that I previously recited. And even though it's getting a lot of views overall in terms of the analytics that I can see on my YouTube channel, I think it's so great, so wonderful, that I think it's very much worth re-reciting and having a better version of it out there on the internet. So those are the two that I'll be. I'm actually in the process of reciting now. And what I do, by the way, if you want to sort of get down into the weeds in terms of what our process is I will recite different sections, and then without any modification, I will edit those so that I edit out, the errors or the things that interfere with it being a smooth reading, so that basically, again, it's edited, but it's raw in the sense that I don't denoise it, I don't dehiss it, I don't take out noise or hiss, and I don't increase the volume, which are three things that I do before I upload videos, which I'm reciting utilizing this new mic that I've had for the past few weeks, this Bluebird mic, which is a great mic. So anyway, I'll send those snippets to Sean, and then he will edit them into his program, and like I say, add the subtitles and the music. I'm grateful to Sean for the work he's doing. He's a young man who's extremely committed to promulgating the Buddha Dharma, particularly the Mahayana, and his videos are definitely reaching many people of Chinese heritage. Sean's channel on YouTube is called Dharma Chakra Wheel of the Dharma. I really do encourage you to check it out. Particularly, you might want to take a look at his playlist of Mahayana Buddhist sutras. Now, another thing you'll notice from time to time is that I have this series that I'm characterizing through part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, which are essentially praises of the Buddha. Even though I've mentioned this in the description of these videos, I'll just mention it here in this video, to the effect that where I'm getting these from is from the Avatamsaka Sutra. The Avatamsaka is just I use the word wonderful. I probably overuse the word wonderful, but it's a great sutra. The Flower Garland Sutra is a very large sutra. And, in sort of Mahayana mythology, if you will, it was considered to be the first sutra that the Buddha was inclined to preach when he first became enlightened, the historical Buddha, but somehow or other he felt like that it might be a little bit too difficult for folks to grasp at that time, which is why he started with some of the earlier teachings, and then the Avatamsaka came to us at a later point in time. But in any case, some schools, you know how devoted I am to the Lotus Sutra, as I'm sure are many of you who are listening to this video. But some schools actually think that the Avatamsaka is greater than the Lotus. It is a sutra that has tremendous scope, and one of the Al Bloom essays talks about it in terms of this student Sudana going through the various teachers and learning about the various aspects of Mahayana Buddhism is basically part of how the story unfolds. And of course, I think it's one of the last chapters that has the great vows of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, who is one of the ones that I revere most when I think about the cosmic bodhisattvas. He's the one, as you may recall, who is the protector of the Lotus Sutra, or the protector of those who preach the Lotus Sutra or who recite it. So anyhow, all these segments that are praises of the Buddha are all from the first chapter, and they represent various spirits and beings who are basically indicating their praise for the Buddha in verse form. So I'm just pulling out the essence of some of those. And my recommendation, if you like these, is to actually look at them in the playlist, where, if you get your computer cranking on them, it'll play one after another after another. Each of them is pretty short, but I find them very pleasant to reflect upon, and helps to really give a deep sense of the wondrous attributes of the cosmic Buddhas. And you can plug in, if you will, any Buddha that you most revere, whether it be Amitabha Buddha or Vairocana Buddha or Sakyamuni Buddha. I think that's, the Buddhas aren't going to care one way or another, but that the point being that, okay, what is Buddhahood? What are the attributes of Buddhahood? And these verses give you a sense of that, if you want to reflect on those and listen to them. It is obvious that one of the sutras that I'm working on right now is called Buddha Speaks Mahayana Sublime Treasure King Sutra, also known as the Karanda Vyuha Sutra. And this sutra, while I'm not real comfortable with some of the elements that talk about the hells, and there are some sexist kinds of components to it, one or two of which I've actually modified. But all in all, I think it's very worthwhile. I'm doing it based on the recommendation of one of my subscribers. And what it has going for it is certainly its strong emphasis on the focus on Avalokiteshvara and a description of how wonderful Avalokiteshvara is. And in addition, and most importantly, and I haven't yet got to that point in my recitation, but it's going to end up describing the so-called 6 words great enlightening Dharani. And what is this Dharani? It's Om Mani Padme Hum, which is probably the most widely used mantra or Dharani in all of Buddhism, from the standpoint that, for example, in Tibet, devotees write this mantra down on pieces of paper and recite it orally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of times. Just to give you one little snippet that tells of the immense power of this mantra or Dharani, is in the sutra where it says, "This Dharani eliminates all obstructions. It is the mother of all Tathagatas Prajna Paramita. When proclaiming this 6 words, great enlightening king, all Tathagatas, Arhats, Samyak Sambuddhas, and Bodhisattvas should respectfully join their palms and pay homage to it. This Dharma is the most supreme, quintessential, pure, delicate, and wonderful Dharma in Mahayana. Why? Because it has come from all Mahayana sutras." Well, that's quite an endorsement. And they tease us a fair amount in this sutra, in the sense that the authors don't tell what it is right off the bat. But if you're patient and you slog through the various components and chapters of this particular sutra, you will be rewarded ultimately with an actual articulation of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Now, clearly, anybody who listens to some of the videos on my channel realizes that my own lineage, my own sense of identification is with Qin Buddhism, or Jodo Shinshu, which is the sect that reveres Amida Buddha and whose followers rely upon the primal vow of Dharmakara Bodhisattva before he became Amida Buddha, when he basically said, all we have to do is have faith in the power of his vow, and we are assured that we will be reborn in his pure land when we die. So in any case, from that standpoint, I'm very focused in on the writings of Shinran, who is considered to be the founder of Qin Buddhism. He's the one that really refined the teaching to its ultimate form of pure grace, as Al Bloom would say. That there is no requirement of works or any kind of virtue in order to be saved, in order to be given the gift, if you will, of being grasped, never to be abandoned by Amida. And by the way, you may or may not want to think of this as an expedient means, but if you really listen carefully and study and reflect upon sutras like any of the Mahayana sutras, really, but I'm going to say sutras like the Sutra of Complete Enlightenment or the Six Patriarchs Sutra. These things all point to the fact that all the approaches that are reflected in the various sutras, be they Theravadan, Mahayana, Vajrayana, that these are all expedient means. The Buddha uses these various means to help beings, to help us transcend our suffering and, come to a greater sense of peace, and to be able thereby to live our lives in a more productive, meaningful, compassionate way as we navigate our various relationships and our various duties that we have within our own situations. So in any case, I have recited many of Shinran's works, and I continue to upload some of these, to recite and upload some of these, some of the ones that are a little more challenging, because what they do is they indicate various things that Shinran is giving comment upon. So I give an indication as to what the quote is, or the element of scripture that he's commenting upon, and then indicate what his comments are upon it. And what he's doing basically is helping to explain a comprehensive system of how we can understand Qin Buddhism, and very importantly, how it ties back into the wider tradition of Mahayana Buddhism and of Buddhism in general. Of course, for any of these things that I'm reciting in a given video, you can see the exact reference in terms of what volume I'm using. So I'm not going to be getting into that detail in this particular video. The last thing that I'll mention is not actually written by Shinran, but was written by one of his followers, who presumably is actually indicating things that Shinran said. And of course, that's the Taani Show. And the interesting thing about this particular volume, called Taani Show, a primer, is that there are two versions of each section. One is sort of a verse version, and the other is sort of a literal version. And I've been playing with reciting some of the literal versions, although again, this is not at the top of my list in terms of the things I'm working on. But from time to time, you'll see a video that includes one or more chapters or sections from the Taani Show. Now, I had previously recited the Taani Show from another translation, and of course that's available, and that's fairly widely viewed according to the analytics of my channel. I think it's a great, I'll try to avoid using the word wonderful this time, great, profound, I'll have to use it, wonderful volume. It's a brief text, but really communicates the essence of Shinran's thinking, and also addresses how he views various questions and dilemmas within the Jodo Shinshu tradition. One key one, for example, is, okay, if no good work is needed, and in fact, if Amida's vow is primarily designed for the evil person, or the person with great karmic baggage, if you will, well, why not do bad things? And of course, Shinran's answer to this is just because there's an antidote, we don't take a poison. So, there's an active attempt to prevent an interpretation of nihilism. And frankly, just having recited the early section of the Platform Sutra, the Encomium of the Platform Sutra, the same point is made. And let me close this video by actually giving a small snippet from the Encomium, which is a sort of a preceding segment to the Platform Sutra, not the platform, but written by another master about the platform. He says, "The wondrous mind is not formed through cultivation, nor is it illumined through enlightenment. It is formed fundamentally." And then a little bit later, "It is cultivated through non-cultivation, and hence it is called correct cultivation. It is illumined through non-illumination, and hence it is called correct enlightenment." But then, this is qualified when the author says, "There are those who say, quote, 'There is no cultivation and no enlightenment, no cause and no result,' close quote." And what he says then is that those folks are, quote, "mistaken as to the teachings of the perfected man," namely Huineng. They abandon the precepts, meditation, and wisdom, and hence necessarily drift off into murky space, and there is nothing I can do about them. So, again, I think what's being said here is no words can describe reality. No concepts can describe reality. No virtues can assure that we gain insight into reality. No practices are necessary in order for us to be part of the flow, part of reality. We are part of reality. It's inherent in us fundamentally, to use the word from the Platform Sutra or the Encomium. So, any effort on our part is not a prerequisite. On the other hand, that does not mean we just sort of develop sloth or negative attributes such as, harming sentient beings. In other words, we still have an obligation to do the best we can to kind of muddle through this world, through this life, through this time-limited period that we are here on Earth, doing the best we can to manifest positive characteristics in terms of the precepts, in terms of meditative kinds of practices. Again, not as a requirement, but as a way of expressing our gratitude, is what Shin Buddhists would say. Shin Buddhists say, we recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, not to get anything, not to make ourselves puff up in terms of our ego, and not to make ourselves think we're a better person, but simply to express gratitude for the tremendous gift that we've been given. And all of us have been given that gift, the gift of life, the gift of an opportunity to be in this world, to be in human form, and even more grateful to have been exposed to the Buddha, to the Buddha Dharma, to Mahayana Buddhism, to Buddhism, to the Buddha Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu.